yesterday, Thursday, both Biden and Trump were in Brownsville, Texas, and Eagle Pass, Texas. They were there to take a look at the southern border. Biden called on the orange bastard to help unblock the plan that's been sitting in Congress to cut migrant crossings. And the one that Trump said to, what's his name, Mike Johnson, the phony Speaker of the House, to kill it. But both of these people, Joe Biden and the filthy pig Trump, were in what is being called by various media outlets as dueling visits to the border, because this is a key issue heading into November's election, the insanity at our southern border. And, again, and this just falls on deaf ears. I don't think anybody wants to hear this. I think people that listen to this podcast know this already. But you never hear it discussed by anybody, not even on MSNBC, and you certainly don't hear any politicians talk about it. But the reason there is a migrant crisis to begin with is not because of our rules about immigration. It's not because we have a border crisis that's caused by poor enforcement. No. The reason we're having such a horrible situation is because of what the United States has done to Mexico, and especially Central America. Not so much Mexico anymore, but especially Central America and countries in South America. Where it concerns Central America, we spent the past 70 years beating the shit out of that part of the world. We took away their tribal governments. We took away their attempts at democracy and replaced it with military dictatorship. We took away their right to own their own country and replaced that right with the divine right of kings, you might call it, the right of corporate America, to go to Central America and just take whatever they wanted, open up banana plantations, whatever you want to do, United Fruit. We used agriculture techniques that have in Central America that have absolutely destroyed the ability of the Central Americans to feed themselves anymore because of how we have degraded the land and the water there. We instituted a form of fascist lawlessness with these dictators that we backed, to the point where so many people in Central America can't even go for a goddamn walk to their local church for fear of being gunned down by a drug gang. So, you never hear that, do you? You never hear the primary reason that Central America is in such a mess. It's because of U.S. U.S. policy in Central America going all the way back, I said 75 years, going back 125 years. All the way back to the time when Teddy Roosevelt was president. And after having a taste of international imperialism in the Dominican Republic, in Cuba, and Central America, and the Philippines, in our war with Spain, well, the rest is history, as they say. So anyway, Biden was in Brownsville, Texas, which is right across the Rio Grande from Mexico. Well, of course, where he criticized Republicans for rejecting that bipartisan effort to make immigration rules stronger after the orange bastard told them not to pass it. And Biden and the orange bastard is making his third bid for the White House, as we all know. Filthy son of a bitch. But apparently, according to the political pundits, they're going to face each other in the polls in what will be a very close election on November 5th. That looks to be one that is going to, in my opinion, push this country right into the breach of violence. Because if Trump wins, it'll be fraud, I'm pretty sure. If not, okay, if it's perfectly legit. There are millions of us in this country who are not going to put up with it, not going to stand it. We will either decide to emigrate, will decide to take our country back, not to borrow a term from these crazy fucking MAGA punks. If Biden wins, you know what the Antichrist is going to start screaming. He already is. He did before he was even elected the first time, that if he loses, it's fraud. If he, the great Donald Trump, this narcissistic psychopath, if he loses, well, it has to be because it was stolen from him. So that will bring out his minions, his punks and bums and bully boys to try to storm the Capitol. Only this time they'll probably come well armed, and hopefully Joe Biden will, when that happens, will call out a squad of Marines or a platoon of Marines to shoot the fuckers down. Well, if it's an insurrection, what do you expect? Biden said, while he was at the border, he said, quote, "Here's what I would say to Mr. Trump. Instead of telling members of Congress to block this legislation, join me, or I'll join you in telling the Congress to pass this bipartisan security bill," end quote. And then he was briefed at the border by Border Patrol agents and other people on the ground who are dealing with this on an hour-to-hour basis. And after that briefing, Biden said, quote, "They desperately need more resources," end quote. Well, sure they do. Just like the people in Ukraine desperately need more resources. Just like the people in Gaza desperately need more resources. You know, but we have Christian devils, demons, who are in control to the degree necessary that they can stop legislation in our Congress, especially the House, but now also the Senate. And it's really becoming critical. Now, the orange bastard also met with local officials, as well as the sitting governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, that snotty little prick, before he went to a park in Eagle Pass, the Orange Vomit did, where border crossers have posed a major problem for authorities in recent months. That's where a lot of them have been streaming from the south. And Trump, as he is wont to do because he's a bastard, he said, quote, "This is a Biden invasion over the past 3 years. This is a war," end quote. And of course, I mean, nobody expected anything different from the Antichrist. This is the kind of language, this inflammatory bullshit that he uses to make the MAGA people just go crazy and want to jump up and down in their cages and throw their urine at somebody. So the orange bastard promised that when he's elected, ta-da, he's going to bring back policies, including the Remain in Mexico plan that required some migrants to wait in Mexico for the outcome of their immigration cases. I wonder if Trump asked for permission from the government of Mexico. Oh, never mind. Now, according to the Reuters news agency, several hundred maggot idiots gathered on street corners in an area overlooking that park. That's an area that has been commandeered by Border Patrol to block migrants crossing illegally. And the dumb fucks were all carrying their signs and wearing their little red hats, and they had flags and banners saying "Make America Great Again." And they also had something brand new that Trump has inspired these crazy fuckers to do now. They carry banners that say "Never surrender." Never surrender to what, you dumb shits? Truth? Never surrender to justice? Never surrender to reality? Never surrender to dignity? Never surrender to peace and fairness and justice? Dumb shits. What else from the border? Well, he was joined by Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, who, by one vote, the Christian devils in the House voted to impeach over his handling of the border, as if Mayorkas has the power to just order things done. This is what the Christian fascists are banking on when the orange Antichrist becomes president. Legislative action? Fuck that. Consensus? Yeah, just order it and then back it up with guns. This is what the Christian fascists want. This is what the Antichrist has promised them. Mayorkas told reporters on his way there, quote, "This visit is focused on the work that we do, not the rhetoric of others," end quote. Well, if you want to go back to the end of January, there was a Reuters Ipsos poll that found rising concern among Americans about immigration. 70% of the people who responded to this poll listed immigration is the most important problem facing the U.S. today, which is utter bullshit. You know it, and I know it. It's just bullshit. And that's up sharply from 11% back in December. Now, for the Christian fascists, a.k.a. Republican respondents, it was the top concern. 36% cited it as their main worry, which was above the 29% who cited the economy. This is how propaganda, this is how the big lie works. You know, all the rapists and criminals and drug dealers and mass murderers who are coming across the border. Oh, of course, maybe one or two persons who comes across our border from Canada or from the South is capable of going wacko and killing somebody. Didn't we just have that at the University of Georgia over here in Athens, Georgia? And Trump, who made his visit, he was joined by Greg Abbott, that little shit. And the Abbott administration has been building at Eagle Pass what is being called a military base camp. A base camp. The only experience I've had with base camps is from watching news reports about base camps in Afghanistan or Iraq or the Lebanon-Syria border. But you see, these phony little shits, these Christian fascists, they trip on using military jargon to describe their Christian activities. So Abbott now has a base camp to deter migrants. A federal judge in Texas yesterday blocked Texas' new law giving officials broad powers to arrest, prosecute, and order the removal of people who illegally cross the border. Because it's not a state obligation. It is the federal government that makes determinations about our borders and our laws governing immigrants. That's one of the reasons that this filthy little prick, Abbott, when he was ordered, he put in razor wire. That was a lot of fun, wasn't it, Greg? You son of a bitch. Razor wire. It didn't deter people from coming across the border. It just guaranteed that people were going to be sliced up, which is exactly what happened. They call it concertina wire. The concertina always makes me think of a mini concert for some reason. Oh, well. There's Reuters quotes a woman named Wendy, 25 years old, who came to downtown Eagle Pass to watch the Antichrist visit her hometown. She said she voted for Biden in 2020, but doesn't know who she's going to support this November. Wendy Rojas. This is what Wendy said, quote, "You feel sometimes for people who are in situations like that, who are dying to get over here, but I understand more the Republican view of how about we focus on ourselves first?" Well, that is strictly a Trumpian attitude. Only with Trump, it's not focus on yourself first. It's focus on yourself always. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.